Good afternoon, Westwood, and welcome to the Wolverine Report. Evan Cardamino, co-host, he is on the switcher today. Charlotte is out, also Marie Fascaldo, social media, and I'm Morgan Donahue. And folks, today we have an awesome episode that we're very excited to bring to you. Some Westwood legends that have come together to form a fantastic organization that is supporting something near and dear to our heart when it comes to Westwood athletics. The Westwood Athletic Alumni Association. We have two members with us today. John Buckley, class of 1997. Joe Vinci, senior, class of 1998. Not with us today, Alex Jowdy. He's part of the class of 97. Mike Griffin, class of 95. Two-time Super Bowl champ. Brett Hetnick, part of the class of 2015. But delighted to have John and Joe here. Guys, how are you? Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So glad to be able to talk about this fantastic organization. If anyone was looking on social media around town the last week or so, they noticed John Griffin was at the school committee last week, presented a $12,500 check. Remarkable. All the proceeds that were fundraised from last year, which is amazing. For those at home that aren't aware of the Westwood Athletic Alumni Association, also the golf tournament, tell us a little bit about it. How did it start? What does it support? And, what is part of the fundraising that ultimately culminated in that check that John gave to the school committee last week?
So we had a group of us, the four guys you just mentioned. We grew up together. We were close in age, and we get together. We get together often. We just started talking about Westwood sports and what we could give back. Joe had kids in the high school, recently. His youngest just graduating this year. So, and I have young kids, so I'm on the other spectrum of it. But they'll be coming up through the Westwood schools down the road. So, we wanted to just, do something that we could get people together. And we thought a golf tournament would be the best thing. And we just kind of, ran with it on the fly the first year. We got a lot of people there. It was kind of like a reunion type of thing. Yeah. But in a ways, with the reunion thing, we were able to raise a good amount of money where our money each year goes back to Westwood Athletics and, what they want to put it to. We leave it up to them what they want to put the money towards.
Incredible. And that started, so this is the third year, right? And first year, I think we were talking a little earlier. It was kind of just thrown together, and it was somewhat like of an outing, and it's since grown since then. Did you imagine that it would grow into what it is today? A $12,500 check presented last week.
No, I don't think we had that expectation originally.
Yeah.
But through word of mouth and social media, things it's been out there, and each year we get more and more people, and I think this year again will be another large check we're able to cut to the athletic department at Westwood High School. So, we just hope to keep the momentum going, add some more sponsors so that we can continue to deliver that check to the schools. So,
yeah. And how fun is it just to get, everyone together, classmates and whatnot, on the group text, love seeing the, busting each other's chops. Probably nothing's changed since, graduating high school, but how fun is it to see, classmates and also meeting kind of new, some of the younger Westwood generation that come around to support the organization?
Yeah, it's a great event. I mean, it's something that you probably see most of the people just once a year.
Yeah.
So everybody's older now and they got their families and things to do. So it's nice to catch up with people and kind of talk about the glory days and have quite the day, which is going to a good cause as well.
Yeah. And it's also, growing up in Westwood, I brought it up on the podcast a few times where it's good to see some town pride. I think Westwood, it's different than Norwood. Norwood is like, they celebrate the town, with like the Matt Brown situation, how quickly they were able to fundraise and support that and still continue to support Matt and, him running the marathon every year. And not to say Westwood is different than that. I think Westwood, people are, more personal, and they're busy with the schedules and whatnot. And these are opportunities to just get people out of the house, bring them together, to take down their guard, and to have some fun, and Jack Tolman, who runs Norwood Community Media, he made a great point, and he said high school is like a moment in time that's frozen, it's captured. Everyone looks back and it feels like it was yesterday, like all those memories. And to be able to get everyone together and enjoy that a day together, people are quick to sign up. People, we looked at the list. A lot of the people who played last year already ready to play this year. How much fun was that, for a lot of these folks where they look forward to this event? It's not just a fundraiser, but it's an event where they mark off their calendar, because you don't get too many opportunities now with how busy life is, kids and whatnot, to carve time out together.
Yeah, I think that's a very big part of it. A quick example of that, and I don't remember her name, but I know there's a woman, I think she was in the class sometime in the late 80s. She comes in from California. So, I mean, that gives you a quick idea of the reach and the lengths that people are willing to go to come for one day of golf.
Yeah.
And then to go out and have a a couple of drinks and some food afterwards. Yeah. So,
yeah, I mean, Ann Heffron, who is a co-author with Kathy Delaney of her new book, she lives out in California. She was out here for 2 years to help write that book. And she did it. Westwood's that special to her. And, it's so special to so many, because it's an important time of our lives. And when you look at sports and the winning culture and those memories, like, I still think, and I still talk about with my teammates, state championships. And, these guys right here, 2 state championships apiece, football, for the legendary Coach Wolfinger, by the way, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But to do all that together, have those memories in this special town is remarkable. I always look back at, some of the memories like Bergsons. Some of these kids today won't even know about Yulden's, or they won't know about the centennial, 19. I don't know if it was the bicentennial or centennial. It was like 1997. I think it was the 100-year anniversary of the town. It was especially the parade and all that, and that was special to me. But I'm interested to learn about kind of your backgrounds of growing up in Westwood. What parts of town did you guys grow up in, and what were some of your earliest memories in Westwood?
So I grew up on by the Downey School.
Yeah.
Went to the Downey School. Some of the memories, I'd say, just the town has become so different. Yeah. You're probably too young to remember the farm stand. That was right where, CVS was there, and now Orange Theory Fitness, Neroli, everything's in that plaza there.
Yeah.
Morrison's always been there.
Yeah.
Played my Little League days there, baseball. Wolfinger still umpires, I believe, down there. I've seen him. I've caught him. I've seen him every now and then driving by. So that's something that is neat. I had the opportunity. I'm very grateful and that I'm able to still live in Westwood. Yeah. I bought the house that I grew up in, and my kids, I have 3 young kids. They're gonna go through the system and probably play at that same field that I played at many years ago. So it's nice.
Any home runs at Morrison?
I had a few.
Is there anything better than hitting it one right towards the train tracks?
I had a few. Nothing like Dave Lynch. Shout out to him.
Was he just a monster?
He was the king at Morrison.
Really? Was he? I'm guessing a righty hitter.
He was a lefty.
Lefty.
Lefty. Used to put him out over into the tennis courts.
Was he hitting the scoreboard?
He was blasting him over the fence in the tennis court. He was probably the best one in my time over there.
I remember when we were a little bit older, too old for that field, so we started going to the softball fields and thought we were big dogs hitting like the fire department, hitting over that fence. Yeah. But what a beautiful field to grow up in. So you were on the Downey side. Joe, were you Downey as well, or were you on the Sheehan School?
So
Martha Jones side.
I grew up off in the Hatton Street, actually right at the town line in Norwood. So part of my backyard was in Norwood. So, and so went off to school and then got married, and then we had our first son and we came back. We lived in Norwood for a period, but I actually live in the same neighborhood as Buck, and we've been here 17 years. So
nice.
It and I can speak to what Buck already touched on. My kids have already been through the Morrison Park. So the same field that I played at as a kid, I've seen both of my boys play there, and getting to see them come up through the same school system, and actually seeing there's only a few left at the high school teachers that I had that now my boys have or had. So it's really special to still be a part of the town. Yeah. And I worked in town for 18 years too. So I was plugged in a lot of different ways. So we're just happy to still be here.
You guys grew up in a special area. When I coached hockey, shout out Thomas Hamilton, Max Jacobson. That Max was a basketball player, Thomas was a hockey player. Well, we also Kevin D'Entremont. I believe his father's chief of police for Dedham. They would always talk about growing up in Islington, and Thomas Hamilton was crowned himself as the mayor of Islington.
Sling town,
and they call it the hockey capital of Westwood. So a lot of pride in that area. Joe, any memories yourself growing up in Westwood? So I didn't know of that store or the place you had mentioned, but when I think of when I think of early Westwood days, how can you not forget Bergson's?
Yeah.
Or even do you remember the carnival they used to do at the high school?
Yeah, Sam Pino.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or the circus. They used to bring the circus, and my dad used to bring me to the the day before the circus. They'd have the animals out, so you could walk by and see an elephant in Westwood.
Yeah.
You could see tigers and whatnot in Westwood. Crazy. But stuff like that. What were some of the early memories you had?
I'll give you two. So one, I can speak to Bergson's, I can speak to Yulden's, all those things, but I don't know how many people remember the Carvel in the Lambert's Plaza, the actual storefront of Carvel where you could go get Fudgy the Whale and walk out. Another thing that I distinctly remember as a kid were the wrestling shows at the high school that the Police Relief Association put on. I mean, Nikolai Volkov was there one year, Sergeant Slaughter, Tito Santana. So these were all big names that we used to watch on Saturday mornings. And then they were towards the twilight of their career, they'd be on the circuit and they would come through Westwood. So we used to go to those shows as middle schoolers and even high schoolers. It was a blast.
So I heard about these as kids, but I was watching Triple H biography. WWE has them on Peacock now, and I'm watching, and we'll add this clip. He was called Terrorizer. This is before he even made it big. He was out in Hampshire. He's going around Boston. He's in the Westwood gym, and you see the banners behind him.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
So what was the fundraising for that wrestling? Because I'd always heard about it. I'd never been. It was
it was similar to what we did when I was on the police department and I ran the Relief Association. We would do a basketball game against the Patriots players.
Yeah.
And there would be make a donation and get a ticket, and that would go back towards the membership of the Relief Association within the department. And it was the same. There was a ticket and all that money. Once they paid for the publisher or whatever the name of the guy that actually puts the show on, it's escaping me. Yeah. And they pay the wrestlers, and the rest of that goes to the department. Yeah. And they use that for their membership for, helping each other out when the chips are down and stuff like that. So
that's all. We need to bring that back. I'd love to see Dudley Boys 3D someone through a table.
That would be good.
But clearly, some fun memories in Westwood. And now living in Westwood, you want your kids, to have that experience or had that experience.
Right.
How important is that being part of this organization to really kind of bring back, to have your touch on to create, some really fun times and memories for athletics for your kids and future kids to come through Westwood?
That's what you want. Dating back and, baseball coming up again, they had the rainbows back in the day. We were 11, 12 years old. And
Will Finger start that?
He did.
Yeah.
Summer baseball was just was a huge thing, so you want to see that, maintained throughout, because I know there's a lot of travel teams, which they didn't have as many back in the day, where kids go and they play for the Gators or whatever these teams are in the area. So you want to see them play, Westwood summer baseball and kind of experience what you experienced, as a father when I was younger. Yeah. One thing I meant to ask was Christie's. Was that around, or was that before your time?
The best. So
Smoky Joe.
I think we've talked about it, where you were big on the Smoky Joes, and I was big on the steak and cheese. Yeah, the steak and cheese. But they had so many. I remember the Diablo.
Oh yeah.
They had so
Raging Bull.
And that was I was heartbroken when that when they closed down, because it was such good comfort food. Right. And, have a bad Sunday, I'm going to go get a steak and cheese at Christie's.
Well, that's the thing. You tell people, the older I got and it was still there, you meet people from other towns. They say, where can I get a sandwich? I say, Christie's. They say, Christie's?
No one knew it.
They think of it as a 7-Eleven. And I said, just try it out.
Yeah. Well, that was a funny thing, because we call it Christie's, but there was no sign out front that said Christie. I think it said Westwood Convenient. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So my dad would always say the convenience store. Everyone had their special name for, for Christie's, but what a spot. I used to get a kick out of every now and then one of the guys who ran the grill he hated if he knew he had to get something on the grill, he
know.
would be like,
I know exactly who you're talking about.
yes. Where like you'd order, can I get a steak and cheese? He'd be like,
Did he happen to look like Henry Rollins?
yes,
Yes, okay.
that's the guy.
Yeah.
That's the guy. But it was always just like, it was the place to go before games, after games, the subs, even the turkey, the deli turkey there
Right.
was terrific. I think the key of what made the sub so good there was the bread was terrific.
Yep.
Bingo.
And then my go-to, I'd order, and then I'd go hit up the magazines. I'd go read like the first 20 pages of like Sports Illustrated, what's the latest, and then boom, it's ready, and I'm out of there,
Yep.
But yeah, classic.
I got one more for you. So,
Yeah.
and this goes back to a tradition that we had when we were at the high school, and I don't know if it continued on afterwards, but we would have pregame meals. Now, we played Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Our Friday night game was maybe once
Unheard
a year.
of. Yeah.
And that was a special thing. And I tell my kids that, and they think Saturday 10 a.m.s is the lamest thing ever. But we would go to Ann's Lunch, which is now where BB's Bakery is.
Unbelievable.
Complete hole in the wall. Ralph Guerra,
yeah.
and his son-in-law was in there for a while.
Was that his son-in-law who worked
Jeff, yeah.
Ralph, best hand in Westwood.
Yeah.
I when I was on the Norwood call, I joked around. George Yusevich, who used to be the principal in Norwood, best hand in Norwood, and the guy was laughing. He goes, "Yeah, he never left Norwood, so I don't know how the heck he got it."
Yeah.
Ralph, terrific tan.
Yes.
And you know what? You order, your meal there. 30 seconds later, it's already there.
Yep.
So quick, and it was terrific.
Yeah, it was
And
good food.
The newspaper articles on the wall too. He's definitely a football guy. You could
Mm-hmm.
tell because he, it'd be stuff on the wall. I remember I played with Drew Bateman. His brother was a quarterback on Westwood.
Jason, yep.
And his stuff would be on the wall. And their father, by the way, legendary.
Bob,
athlete at Brown. But what a spot that was. And then so when I played, Thanksgiving had a tradition. I don't know if it was something that was kind of started more towards my generation, which I graduated 2005. I was behind these guys, but the day of the Thanksgiving game did pancakes, and it was pancakes like in the cafeteria. And I think the people who sponsored that and helped out was the Legion. I think the Legion, because the Legion were, I think they had their hand in that. Did you guys have something similar? No.
I don't remember anything like that. I know Monday nights, we used to have all-you-could-eat pizza at Joe and Maria's on the Common.
Yeah.
That's Joe and Maria Mancuso at the time when they were Westwood family. Their son, Joe.
Legendary hockey player.
Yes,
right?
he played at Northeastern,
yeah.
and their others. They had I think 3 or 4 boys.
Yeah.
The youngest, the third boy, Anthony, was in my class. So it was right where the Norwood Theater is now.
Yeah.
And we used to go as $5, and they would just keep making pizzas until we could barely move.
I mean, this is what, I think these kids will love to have, is those type of memories, where ultimately this is the type of town where, kids do graduate and they'll eventually go to college, they'll get married, and a lot of them will move back because they want their kids to have the same experience they had. Sports, education, great town, safe.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't want to hit a home run out of Morrison Park too,
Yep.
So want to bring it back towards the tournament. One of the special parts of the tournament is not only just the players coming back and playing and supporting, but the sponsors. Being able to sponsor local, Westwood businesses, even businesses outside that have been loyal to supporting this tournament and supporting the organization, who've been some, and I know it's impossible to name all of them, so we're probably going to miss some and whatnot, but who've been some loyal sponsors from the beginning that have never hesitated when it came to asking about sponsoring.
So we split the sponsorships up and how we go about doing that. So I've had Wegmans and Roach Brothers have been my 2 biggest.
Yeah.
It's very easy with both of them, and both of those grocery stores are very big about community giving.
Yeah.
And always have been. Yeah. And I also had Steve DeSaro at Neroli.
Yeah.
And he's done it. But I mean, we are fortunate to have several alumni that may not even show up that will just say, "Hey, put me down for a sponsorship." Like Ted Duffy.
Yeah.
I don't think Ted's played, but he's sponsored a whole of the last 2 years. The houses, Jake and Zach House, same thing. They haven't shown up, but they've sponsored each and every year. And then the Matera brothers, Greg and Chuck, they help out tremendously with our putting raffle at the putting green right by registration. So all those items that are on the green are from Chuck and Greg Matera. So, and then I got to be missing some others. But
Yeah, I mean, just Joe set it right with all the businesses, but also we've had businesses involved where last year we had an individual who has his own syrup label, Maple Jack, I believe.
Jack Fiscaldo.
Yes, and his father and I believe grandfather have a history through Westwood throughout the years.
Craig Fiscaldo, and you probably know Ken. Ken was the legendary basketball guy in Westwood who has run CYO for St. Margaret Mary's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember. Yep.
So, he was out on a hole last year, and, he was giving away his product and kind of promoting it. And then this year we have an individual, Adam Monroe, who opened up his own business. He's going to join us this year. So we like to try to, get Westwood people involved on the business aspect of that side. But Joe kind of hit it on the head. Where we've had a lot of people within the town, business in the town, that have been really good to us. Islington Pizza, who has been here a long time. Maria, she's going to be a sponsor this year.
Part of our childhood.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So she's on board this year. And
what's your go-to, by the way, at Islington?
Oh man, the Cheeseburger Club.
Very good.
Yeah,
very good. Pizza's fantastic.
Pizza's very good.
And I'm not necessarily a Greek pizza kind of guy.
I'm not either.
But they
good.
nail it.
Yeah.
They nail it. And the subs are good too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like getting through to a radio station to win tickets to get through the phone. They'll be busy, and then they'll put you on hold for a while. But they do a great
operation
job.
They have there though, like they'll have like 20 people, head down in work, and they
grind
clockwork.
Yep.
And they all know like they're kind of who's doing what, timing, looking at the tickets. It's unbelievable, and it's the same folks that have been there for so many years. Fantastic.
Yeah, that can tell you a lot about a place when you see individuals working at the same place for quite some time. So.
Definitely. If I could just mention a couple other people though, because my head's spinning now. So Jason Spiegel, who's a Westwood guy, he's done the signs every year for each of our T-Box sponsors. Huge. So he donates the signs, and that's a huge help to us. The last year was the first year, and this year will be the second that we've gone to Beacons in Walpole, which is owned by a Westwood alum, Ara Yarian, who's class of '98. He and his brother Evan run that, and they're nice enough to host us after, which was great last year. It was a big, wide open space. It was much more conducive to walking around and talking, and so it was great. And we're happy to have them as sponsors again.
Yeah, they've been very good to us, and just so people know, I guess we can say it here. They're going to be a part of the fundraiser this year, starting in March. They're going to have a drink, whether it's like a martini or a mixed drink. That's going to be a Westwood type of drink, and half of the funds are going to go towards a golf tournament for every one that they sell there. So it'll be available in the month of March.
And I talked to Evan. He said kind of the restaurant industry during COVID, it was like all hands on deck. So now restaurants are kind of back to being kind of close to normal as it was before then. So he said he's so excited to have these opportunities now to give back to Westwood, and a lot of these companies are, and this is a perfect event for folks to be able to give back to, whether they're a local business or whether they grew up in Westwood. How can one get involved from a sponsorship perspective? What are the different things that are available to them? What from a call to action perspective, how can someone reach out to inquire about sponsorships?
So we actually have a website. It's www.westwoodaag.org. So if you were to go to that website, you would see information about the tournament, the cost of to play, a cost of a foursome, and then below the golfer registration are different opportunities to sponsor. And I'm just pulling it up here. So we have a T-box sign as a sponsor. We have a par 3 hole sponsor, and then there's other opportunities as well that aren't necessarily in there. But we do a silent raffle every year. So if someone wants to donate something. We've had great luck with that. Bucks bought a Yeti cooler, I think, the last couple of years. We've gotten different donations from Mr. Gillis, from Matt Gillis, like a Westwood swag bag.
Nice.
Orange Theory always donates like a week's membership and some other swag. Yeah. So
that's great too. So the raffle items.
Yes.
Raffle items are just as important. So for potential sponsors, gift certificates, fun creative ideas like that. There's always like those lottery bags too. Those are always fun where it's, donated by so-and-so or organization. Those are always good ones too. So there you have it, folks. So anyone who wants to inquire about the sponsorships, check it out on the website. It was westwoodwaag.org.
Westwood AAG. westwoodaag.org.
westwoodaag.org.
Another thing that comes to mind too is along with the sponsorships with the tournament, as years go on, we lose people, within the town that have been legends in the town. Last year we had a thing on one of the tees, and we did a sign for Bomber O'Leary. He was a big face in the town. I mean, he was like a dad to so many people, and everybody from Westwood knows him. And this year, the Downs family, Russ Downs passed. We're going to have something for Russ this year. His family was great. They included us within the memorial that they had. They had a little note, for donations to go to the golf tournament. So we're very grateful for that as well. And Russ is just, similar to Bomber. Everybody knew Russ Downs.
And I love that component too of being able to memorialize some of these great people in the town of Westwood and to use it as an opportunity to celebrate them. Coach Downs, let's talk about him for a second too. Mm-hmm. Another big guy when it comes to Westwood baseball, and like what a positive person he was. He used to coach a little bit with Wales. Wales would bring him back. He was retired, but still had a lot to give. Was he still in the high school or middle school when you guys were in Westwood? How did you guys remember, Russ from growing up?
I thought he was at the high school for our first couple of years, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he was basically done, retired, but he was always hanging around the ball field. Yeah. Mainly baseball, but all the sports. He was always up there and just always positive, always joking, always had a good joke for you. Whether it was a good or a bad joke, you were laughing no matter what. Yeah. But just super friendly and just great to be around. So.
Yeah, and
he really was.
When I worked in town and I'd pop into the 109 Dunks in certain time frames of the morning, Mr. Downs was always seated in the corner. And, even 20, 25 years later, he remembered exactly who I was. And, hey, Joe, how are you? And, again, still cracking jokes. Just an incredible guy. And he was a presence wherever he was. And he touched so many different generations. It's incredible how many lives he's impacted.
We had like a special handshake. He still remembered it 20 years later. Yeah. And, the handshake would be it was like David Ortiz, like early 2000s. So it'd be like this. And then it would end with a quick bump. Mm-hmm. And I'd be like, it was he was getting later and age wise. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't really feel comfortable, coach, he goes, give me the bump. But it's awesome to be able to just remember them and share stories too. I mean, afterwards, I can't imagine the amount of stories that were swapped, with just, hey, do you remember that time after that baseball game? Or did you know, after those are always just fun to have a good laugh around that. Mm-hmm. So you guys played for a legendary coach, Coach Wilfinger, and he has, I think he coached 10 years at Westwood. It wasn't a long time, but he still has the highest winning percentage, minimum 10 years of any coach in Massachusetts football history. What was it like playing for him? And obviously, guys have some championships that were won with him as the coach.
Where do you start?
So, I was a freshman in 1994 on that team. That's the one. Mike Griffin was the center. Billy Van Gelder, Steve Prinn, Reed McLaughlin. The team was a wagon. Yeah. And I just played special teams, and so I got to see a little bit of Coach Wolfinger, but just. I don't know. He was a great coach, and he knew how to motivate. And then I had him my sophomore year, and then he left after my sophomore year. So really? I had him 2 years, and then I had John Scully. For my last two. You had 3 years of Coach Wolf,
I did,
right?
and he coached me when I was young in baseball as well. But I had 3 years with him. He knew the game, and he was he was a coach that you don't see many this day and age. You don't see many coaches where he put fear in you in a good way where. Yeah. You didn't want to make a mistake because you didn't want to have to go back to if you got a hold of it, you did whatever, and you looked up and you saw him, steaming down at you like bright red or whatever. You knew like, oh boy,
So what was the TVL like? Who were the rivalries? Obviously, Holliston seemed to be a pivotal game every Thanksgiving, with playoff implications on the line. Mm. Were they the top kind of rival, or were there bigger ones than that?
So. No, not my 4 years. When Mario played this past Thanksgiving, I tallied up the 4 years that I played Holliston, and
you guys dominated.
We were 4-0, to the tune of 150 to 16 or something. Yeah. Mine and Buck, I think, would probably agree, was Bellingham. They had Justin Bernard was this running back, and I still have nightmares. They steamrolled us one night, and I think Justin Bernard had 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns, and I can still hear touchdown Bellingham, Justin Bernard.
Yeah.
Um,
Millis was really good.
Millis
back
was
then.
good. Millis
Yeah.
had some big bodies on the offensive line. I remember one kid was like 300 pounds, and same thing with Hopkinton. I think his name was Alex Rojas. He was a D tackle, big man. But yeah, Holliston wasn't that great when I was there.
They were it was like the late 80s they were good, early 90s, and then the mid 90s to early 2000s, they really got back into their groove kind of when I got into high school. So my junior and senior year, both Thanksgiving games were when you're in the playoffs between us and them. So that was when it kind of came back. But
yeah, you hit it. That, I mean, there was a lot of good teams within the league.
Yeah.
But the thing is to remember back then too, and I don't know if it was the same way during your time. It was like if you lost a game, basically your season was
that's
over.
it.
Yeah,
you gotta hope for some luck.
Westwood
You gotta
had-
win out. You can't lose another one.
Westwood had many years, even when I was younger, before Joe and I's time there, where they lost to Holliston on Thanksgiving, and they might have been 10-1, and their season was over.
And you can lose a game by just one play. You
Right.
know, so that's the tough thing is you played well, but there was a crazy, the big plays, as coaches will say. You got to eliminate the big plays. And you can lose a game by just one big play, one turnover, pick six or something. So that was like every game felt like pressure, like a pressure cooker, because you had to go out and win. Knowing that if you had that one loss, and my 2 years we did, you had to make sure you got it done on Thanksgiving, but you also had to hope for some luck.
Right.
And we had some luck with, some upsets in the other games.
I got a great Wolfinger story that comes to mind. My junior, I don't know if Joe will remember, but my junior year, we were a lot better than Holliston, but we didn't play so well in the first half. We were up like 6-0, whatever it was, and we went back to the locker room and we were locked out. And Wolfinger thought that they locked us out on purpose, just for a mental type of thing. So they sent some poor custodian over just to open the door, and Wolf undressed this guy. He probably quit his job that day after it, but that memory just sticks with me. And then we came out second half and we beat up on him pretty good.
So talk to us about the old field. So a lot of kids don't understand.
No idea.
So the old field, well, it's just the walk. You would walk from the locker room, and it was all on like the parking lot, so you could heir the clink, clink,
Exactly.
clink, clink,
And it was parallel to Manhattan Street.
Yes,
it wasn't perpendicular.
It wasn't perpendicular.
And
I think that old snack shack's still in the same spot. It's not, where they have like not the snack shack today, but that little house. I think it might be like they on the back of it is where they have all the state championships.
Yes, that
I think
was
that's
there.
the old snack shack.
Right alongside the sidewalk.
Yes,
Yes. But yeah, you would have to walk through a huge parking lot because that was the parking area for the whole high school. Make sure you wear your cleats down before you even hit the grass.
Exactly.
What little grass there was. But when we were there, Don Brown was the head landscaper at the high school.
Yes,
And Brownie is another Westwood legend.
Great tan as well.
Yes, he was tanned January through December. So you could have a podcast on Don Brown.
Gosh, legend.
Yeah, so he would come out and do the lines, and we all got friendly with him, and he was great to us. But the field wasn't great.
Yeah.
And then our practice field was rocks, if I
Yes.
remember, right, Buck?
A little bit of glass. There was a little bit of everything.
Were
on
you
the
guys
practice
like
field.
the multi-purpose field as practice field, or were you where they had that side like it was just to the right of in between like the wetlands and the field?
Yeah, exactly. It was in
okay.
between.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that
Horrible.
field ran the same thing. It ran parallel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't the greatest, and I would say that to my boys, be like, "You guys are very lucky."
Big time. Oh,
And
100%.
and then it's funny because I would always prefer to play on grass.
Yeah.
And then when my two boys, when they played on grass, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Why would anybody want? But again,
They don't understand how much safer it is,
Right.
But also, you got to get the uniform dirt.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I used to like taking the grass out of the
Right.
helmet. But I mean those Brownie. What a legend you just mentioned
it's
there.
unbelievable.
So I'm pretty sure like the high school got rid of disallowed cigarettes on campus probably at some point during the 90s. I think they gave an exception to him, where you'd see him cutting the grass.
Yep.
And he'd have a smoke and he'd have the shirt off every now and then, showing the abs. But
Oh, yeah.
what a legend he was, and I just love when you can connect with someone who went to high school in the 90s, 2000. And you say a name like that, it brings you back. Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
Who doesn't remember Brownie?
Yep. He was a Westwood legend for sure. Yeah.
Did he have kids around your age, at Westwood? Or
I don't know that Don and his wife had children. I knew that they lived on 109 right by Mill Street for years.
I think he was a veteran too.
Yes, I believe he was. I don't know if they had children or not.
Yeah.
Just a wonderful guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I do got to ask you guys. So you guys grew up with some fantastic athletes. I didn't even know Steve Prynn was a football player. I heard about him as basketball. He's 1,000-point scorer, was legend. But I'm not going to ask you for who your Mount Rushmore is for athletes. But who would ones that you think would make for good candidates for Mount Rushmore? We'll start with athletes and then we'll go to coaches.
And are you talking
Across
all sports?
Across all sports, yeah.
Not just people we play with, but just in general that you watch as a kid or wherever.
Yeah, you could do both. So like ones, if you've heard of ones, like what that, like that's already a head start because if you know of people outside your generation, they had to have been a good player. Like the ones from the 70s.
So
and 80s.
I guess I'll start with a sport that you played, and I didn't ever play really hockey when I was young. I played for a year or two, but and this might be biased because I grew up a street from him, but Timmy Lewis would be hockey for me.
Legend. We had him on the call. Evan knows Timmy, so he did a little color. But what a stud he was.
Yep.
Went to Avon Old Farms after Westwood, and then Boston College. Like Westwood kid that went to Boston College, like one of the top programs in the country. Like what an exceptional talent.
Yeah, I remember watching him in middle school. Yeah, he was excellent.
Yeah. Back-to-back state championships, 91, 92. And what a talent. He's so proud to watch his nieces and nephews play too. Two teams that are having a fantastic season that I know he's going to be excited about for the playoffs wise. But terrific. Did he do 3 years of Westwood or was there 4?
I believe he actually only did 2.
2?
I believe so.
Wow.
I could be wrong on that. I was a few years younger.
Yeah.
But he went on to Avon after, and just as his time there, Westwood had some great teams, and as a kid, being a kid, and he's a friend of mine now.
Yeah.
I talk to him from time to time, and I was younger, so just watching that and going to the hockey games, and they won state championship.
That's another question that we typically ask, and I want to ask you guys. So we'll take it a step back before we ask about other athletes. Who were there's been a common theme when we've brought guests on, and it's been before they even got into Westwood, they had heroes that were Westwood athletes where they came into games and they're like, I want to be Tim Lewis, I want to be Steve Prynn. Who were some of those that were before your time where you're like, that I want to be that. That's a bad man right there, and I want to be him.
I remember middle school. I mean, I was predominantly a football guy, so I remember Mike McFarlane was an incredible talent, did big, fast running back on that 92 team.
That was my answer.
Yeah,
no question.
Wow.
And then someone like Doug McIntyre as a linebacker. He used to fly all over the field, and he played, hard-nosed football.
Elio and Bernard.
Elio, Bob DeSabato. Those are the ones that I remember as a middle schooler. And, at that age, even though that age gap is small, it's still large in terms of, maturity and all that. So you think they're gods when you watch them on
100%.
Saturdays. Yeah.
And they're wearing your uniform.
Right.
I mean, you're wearing that uniform yourself,
Exactly.
Pop Warner or whatnot, and they look like, titans.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And then, the towns there, that used to, and it's kind of getting back to that too, where the town, especially I think the Friday nights help. But the town was there at 10 a.m. on Saturday mornings. That's incredible. Like, to get up after, maybe a late Friday night,
right.
To come to those games. But those are cool because every athlete we've had on here has had someone they looked up to beforehand. And the athletes they mentioned didn't know they had that kind of,
cool.
influence. And I bet you if we ask athletes that were 4 or 5 years behind you guys, they would say your names, So it's pretty cool because that's the best marketing for staying in Westwood, going to Westwood High School.
Right.
So, Joe, I want to ask you, who were some of, the best athletes, and maybe we keep it with just athletes that were around your era that you think would definitely get a nomination, in your opinion, when it comes to Mount Rushmore athletes?
So one that jumps off the page to me is Buck's classmate is C. White.
Oh, yeah.
Women's basketball. She was incredible. That was when Mr. Riley was the head coach, and they had quite a team for year after year, and C was a crucial part of that. And she was a quick, smaller point guard, but she could pass and score. and I mean, she was probably the best that I've seen at that high school.
Yeah.
I don't know, Buck. You want to jump in while I think of another one?
You got me twice because C. White was going to be my next answer, but Matty Lederhouse,
big time.
Got to play baseball with him, and I remember just we were using the metal bats back then, but there was a day that I think it was high school, might have been even a year or two after, but Matty was hitting with a wooden bat, and it just sounded different off the bat. So he was the best baseball player I got to play with for 2 years. He was 2 years below me.
I mean, that's him as a hitter. Was he a pitcher in college?
Yeah. So I think he hit in college because I think he had some arm trouble.
Some arm troubles.
But pitching before he had the arm troubles, he was.
Wales had him come to I think it was off season or whatnot, and he just came to pitch a little batting practice, and I had to go catch, and he was throwing like half. He wasn't even throwing full or even 3/4. He was zipping it in there. It was nothing. It had movement too. It was like coming in probably like high 80s. And I'm like, this guy is like, I can't believe he's from Westwood. It looks like he was made in a laboratory.
And he was a great basketball player too.
Yeah.
He could jump out of the gym.
Yeah.
I played for 2 years for Mr. Levangie at the high school, and Matt could dunk. I mean, I remember he broke his leg. Might have been my junior year, his sophomore year, and he must have rehabbed or did something when he came back from that, and all of a sudden he could. It was incredible. He had an incredible vertical leap. Just a great athlete all around.
Very humble too.
You
wouldn't know
that.
it. Yeah,
that's kind of a Westwood
humble
thing.
Person.
I think parents do a good job of raising their kids here.
Yep.
And I would say we said it. We addressed it before, but football for me, playing wise, would be Prinny, Steve Prinn.
Yeah. What was his position?
He was a wide receiver that had to move to quarterback.
Interesting.
His senior year,
Right.
And I mean, we went that year. We were 12-0, won the Super Bowl, but it took away from his position was wide receiver, and he was so athletic that he was able to transform to quarterback. I believe just his senior year, right?
I think so.
Yeah, because I think Duffy was a quarterback before, and he just it was like he didn't skip a beat. He went to QB where he was not playing the position he grew up playing.
Just an athlete.
Yeah.
And was P.J. McGrail right around his time too?
He was the year before.
Year
so
before,
yeah,
94?
Yeah.
Those are guys we'd love to get more. Got to get some more of these '90s football players.
Yeah, PJ's local. He lives in town.
Yeah. His son Michael's intern for Westwood Media Center.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah. So fun connections, but he's had some great stories to tell. Just over the years, and he's right in the Maze, same neighborhood. So I was on Bailey Street for a bit, and we were right on Bailey Street. Now I'm on Fisher. I moved a street over, but it's fun, being in these neighborhoods.
Yeah, and even dating back before, we mentioned McFarland during the times we were in junior high. They used to play at Nickerson in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I think it was 89 or 88, whatever team it was that won that year. They won at Nickerson and Walter Burrow. They had
Warren.
Greg Warren.
Mike Shea.
Yeah.
They had Narcissa was a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Yep.
Young Bomber O'Leary.
Yes.
That whole team.
I think Brad was on that team.
Pindell was
too.
on that team. Yeah.
Marcus Despinoza. They were a good team.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you bring up the kids playing, what's this for grass and whatever. Like, BU's turf was like, you're waiting to break your leg.
That was
Yeah,
AstroTurf.
like,
That wasn't field turf.
That was, you need to wear sneakers on that.
Correct.
You can't even wear cleats.
Yeah.
Springfield College had that for a bunch of, they had it still 10 years ago.
Boston College had that a long time ago.
Oh yeah. And I feel like that helped
ago.
BC back then. Their speed, and the other teams trying to get used to what is this, But those, and then let's. So I want to just add to that too. So we had Lindsay Hallion on, and her heroes, she said, C. White was first, and Nikki Delaney, great basketball player.
Yep.
And she also mentioned Andrea Barr. She wore number 44 because Andrea Barr wore that, and I thought that was awesome. And then Lindsay Hallion, she is the highest scorer in basketball for boys or girls with over 1,500 points. So I certainly, she was my era. So I think she's on this would be on that list. A guy named Steve Hunt. I don't know if you ever heard of him. 60s. He averaged 20 and 20, and then went to go play for Bob Knight at
Indiana?
at West Point.
Oh, West Point.
West Point. This was I think Coach K might have been a couple years behind as an assistant, but I love uncovering some of these athletes, and hearing about them, and then the McCoys.
Steve McCoy.
Oh yeah.
So tell us about that. Did you guys have any overlap with the McCoys? And are they the first family when it comes to Westwood athletics?
So it was funny at the prom last spring.
Yeah.
We were at the Fiscaldo's house because my son is dating Grace Fiscaldo's good friend. So they did photographs at Craig's house, and Kevin McCoy was there. And I haven't seen Kevin. I mean, it's got to be, almost 30 years, but he helped coach me in Pop Warner. And as soon as I saw him, instant recognition. But yeah, they were a huge team, and Madeline is on the Hall of Fame committee with me, and she was a great athlete. I mean, just a family of athletes and really good people.
I hear amazing parents too, and heard some great stories of if you're going into St. Margaret Mary's, they would take up a whole row. They had but so many good athletes that spanned from the 70s even to the late 80s, early 90s.
And was it Steven that played at Siena? Was he the one that played?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten to know Steve in the last year or so. I didn't know him, even though when I watched as a kid, I went to the basketball games. And when you see him, I mean, you're like, that guy had to have played hoops. He's larger than
tall,
me.
very tall.
And you could just tell athletic wise, like some of these people just have a confidence that just like how they walk and all that, and it's just like it comes easy to them. Where we have to work, we have to work very hard. But I mean, them, when I always think of the Fabianos too when it comes to families. So you had the triplets. You had Michael Fabiano, great running back. Jim Fabiano, first Fabiano to get drafted by the hometown team, the Red Sox. And Joe Fabiano. I think Joe and Jim are one of 3 parent and sibling Hall of Famers. Other being, I think there's Harringtons, and then there is Mark Riley and his mom Cindy Riley. Or she was a great diver, amazing diver, and legendary family. They ran like the Boston Gymnastics Academy of Boston, the Ferraros.
Yes.
And they were tremendous athletes in the 70s. Coaches, what coaches would you put, as some of the top coaches, either your generation or ones that you saw from afar from other generations or heard of?
So Eric Wolfinger.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Bill Riley, absolutely. Trying to think. I mean,
if you talk about, we know, we've talked about Wolfinger, but with Bill Riley, my 4 years, and it was unfortunate they never won the state championship, but the girls for varsity basketball, they were in the Eastern Mass final, I believe, all 4 years. And then we know what they did in the 80s and everything. I don't know when Bill Riley started as a coach.
1990.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just the history of the success of girls basketball through Westwood, whoever was the coaches before Riley in his time, you got to give hats off to
this
them.
guy Hughes. He ended up leaving Westwood to go to Cardinal Spellman. He's from a legendary family, Brockton family. His brother, I believe, is his son is Peter Hughes, who was a heck of an athlete out of Brockton High School, I believe, baseball guy. I think he's the coach of Oklahoma right now. But Coach Riley was an assistant there. He was at Norwood coaching there for many years too. But we just saw him this weekend in the Riley Winter Classic. He is the second winningest coach of all time behind Leslie Frank.
Yeah, I was going to say the women's lacrosse coach.
She's incredible. Kathy Delaney Smith, she only did, I think it was like 10, 11 years. But what a remarkable 10, 11 years she had with 94-game win streak.
Wow.
The countless girls that she coached that went on to the next level. And just
Downs coach back in the day.
Coach Downs.
He's
Yes.
on there.
Yep.
Lacrosse for me, I mean, I know the girls lacrosse at Westwood has had such a great history just from following it. But there was no lacrosse when I was growing up. You know, it kind of became relevant when we were getting out of high school. So I don't have too much knowledge on that, but I know just not even having knowledge and knowing the history of their success from them being that good, everybody around the town knew what they were doing.
The guys in the 70s and 80s, they've heard of Leslie. Yeah. Because, you can't help if people are catching up with the Globe. And then when they're on the front of like the sports section, that's when it's a big deal. And she did it. She changed countless lives with the amount of girls that have gone on to the next level and had a full ride and played, so like Kristen Chelman, she won 4 national championships in a row. She was the 2-time Tewarden Award winner, which is the Heisman for girls lacrosse out of Westwood High School. Yeah, played for Leslie, and then Leslie's kids were tremendous athletes. Meredith, Danny McGinnis married to Meredith. Alex Frank, 4 years at Northwestern, 4 national championships. Amazing.
And so we have a board that each tee box, if it's a sponsor, or we do some of these boards, for Westwood history things, and we had a board last year for the Wall of Champions, which was
Right.
all the
Yeah.
sports
Love
teams that won state champions in the years, and the girls lacrosse took up half the board.
I think there's 10.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's 10 of them.
Yeah, we kind of had to.
Over
we
like
had
20
to. We had
years.
to make do to fit them in there.
There's like
so.
10 of them, literally over 20 years. Remarkable, and yeah, I mean that's incredible. It's what a special town, what a special sports history that's still being written. And Joe, for you,
Mm-hmm.
you went to Westwood High School, you played college football, and then you got to see both your sons play Westwood High School football, win a TVL title, just like you've done. How
Yep.
special is that? to
Yeah,
be able to
it
have
was-
that connection.
That was really something cool. And to, not to take anything away from Mario's senior year, but Joseph's senior year when they were both on the field together was really something
Oh, I
cool to
can
watch.
imagine.
So they both their senior year won the TVL large.
Yeah.
So it was really cool, and just to be able to sit back and watch. I mean, it wasn't the field that I played on, but for all intents and purposes, it was. So it was something really special and something I'll cherish forever.
To do it against Holliston too,
Yeah.
on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that was certainly sweet.
So I want to talk about both of them. So Mario, we had on the podcast, and terrific leader. He was very quiet, a quiet leader, leads by example. But what a year he had! He really, one of the biggest questions at the beginning of the year was the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end of the season, they were a huge strength. And they were young.
Right.
A couple sophomores there, a couple guys that didn't play, like Rosa, who
Right,
they
Ben.
brought him in. And Mario did a terrific job, with Coach Chisholm, and
Mm-hmm.
just turn that into a huge strength. And then defense, he balled out. I can't tell you how many calls I had where I was like, Mario Vinci block. And he had the scoop and score.
Yes, he did.
And then he should have had the block punt and then brought it in for 6. The ref said it was short by
Right.
who knows.
Yep.
But just so many great memories. How special was just the season alone to see him play the way he did, as his last year in a Westwood uniform.
Yeah, it was really special. He was the sole returning starter from the Joseph senior year on the offensive line. So they were the question mark going into the season.
Yeah.
And he was actually heavier his junior year.
Yeah.
And he started doing like jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, and I'm like, dude, you got to start eating. Stop working out. You got to put some weight on.
Yeah.
But so he played lighter than he did, but he had a great season. He would ask me, and I would just say, just go out there and play like your hair's on fire. Just
He would
just
shoot
run
the-
hard and hit hard. And
He would shoot the gap,
Mhm.
and if you can do that, it doesn't matter if you're small, or if you're undersized. He was getting in the back.
he's very quick.
Yeah.
He's much faster than his older brother. And
He's humble, too.
And
Like,
he likes to remind him of that.
He'd make these big plays, and he would just go back to the huddle. So he was kind of like Barry Sanders, where Barry Sanders scored a touchdown, hand the ball off to the ref. And he was so humble after these.
Yeah.
But what a season, and I want to talk about Joe as well.
Sure.
What a amazing freshman year, and Buck, I want you to add to this as well, where we're a small town. We're a very humble, proud town.
Mhm.
So anytime that there's someone from our town that's doing something big, it just makes us proud.
Sure.
Because this person knows what it's like to, hit the light at 109 traffic and to say, well, what's taking so long? This person knows, where to get ice cream in town, Bubbling Brook during the summer.
Mhm.
This person's one of ours, and this person's on the national stage,
Right.
Cool as a cucumber, a true freshman,
Mhm.
doing it on a national championship, in the national championship game. For Notre Dame, which is probably the most historic college football program ever. Not everyone could handle that pressure.
Yeah.
How special is it to see all that hard work, and no one knows it, all the work that had gone in more than you and the family,
Mhm.
when it comes to camps, when it came to all that, to then to get a scholarship to Notre Dame, and then to be a part of that team as a true freshman. And then when I'm watching these snaps in the national championship game, if you put an umpire behind the punter, it was a strike every single time. How special, rewarding, everything. How, as a father, how cool was that to just see from where things started and then to be there at the national championship?
It was extremely special. We started week 0 in
diehard Notre Dame fan.
Yeah,
too.
College Station, right?
Yeah.
At A&M, me, Buck, Giff, and my other buddy Chip Ferramonti. So we were there on August 30th in the Texas heat.
Yeah.
Joseph didn't travel for that game,
Yeah.
but we had already booked it, so we said we're going.
Yeah.
And then all the way through, the home playoff game against Indiana, then the Sugar Bowl, Orange Bowl, and then it was just incredible. Yeah. And that's all a credit to him. He's the one that did the work. He's the one that we bought the snapping net for. And he would come home every day after school and snap for 45 minutes in the cold and the heat. And he did that all himself. We just put him in. We just basically cut the check for the camps. Yeah. That's all a credit to him and his drive and his willingness to just do what he needs to do to accomplish his goals. So, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't nerve-wracking.
Oh, I bet.
I was a basket case more so at the Orange Bowl. The Sugar Bowl, not so much. The Orange Bowl against Penn State, I could barely watch the snaps, especially the one late in the game where they had the snap from the 45 and there's a minute and a half left. And I'm like, just put it in his hands. Just put it in his hands. But, it's funny. You talk to him afterwards and he's like, I just go blank.
Yeah. It's like a golfer with a 5-foot putt,
just
I
go
got
out.
the read.
Yep. Just go out there. I know what I have to do and I execute.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
incredible.
Of course, the most special moment of the season I wasn't there for. It was one of the only, I think I missed 3 games, was Virginia.
Yep.
My folks were there, and he actually covered the punt and had a tackle.
Yes.
So I was watching from home, jumping around like a lunatic.
That's what separates him from probably every other one in the country. He's like Zach Diossi. He's a guy that's going to go down and make a play, and he's the guy you don't want to. You see him coming down, he's going to not only tackle you, he's going to hurt you.
Yeah. So and again, it's wild to see him on the field with the likes of Riley Leonard, Jeremiah Love, these guys that are going to play in the NFL for sure. His roommate is a freshman linebacker, Kingston Villa Amowasu. He's probably going to be in the NFL in 2 years. So the fact that he gets to rub elbows with these guys and be in the locker room with them is incredible.
And was there a Westwood connection with the camps? Was Crabtree a coach that was
so
helpful?
Bill Crabtree is probably one of my favorite people on the planet. Bill coached me and Pop Warner for, I think, C, B, and A team. And Bill is nothing if not a football nut. Yeah. He's a football encyclopedia. He identified Joseph early on because of his body type and said, you got to get him snapping.
He's got the long arms.
Yeah, and I did it in college, but I did it as a position player.
Yeah.
I wasn't a specialist.
Yeah.
But obviously that's changed. The college game has evolved.
Yeah.
And he started working out with Bill's son, Kevin, who long snapped at Villanova for 4 years. And he got good at it. Within a month, he was better than I ever was.
Yeah.
And so we started working with Kevin, and then we started doing national camps. The big name that he went to was Chris Rubio. So he's out in Idaho. He has little regional camps. And the first one Joseph went to was in L.A., and he came back as a 4.5-star recruit. Now, that's not your average 4.5-star. That's on the long snapping scale, so that's not, And then he continued to plug away. He got a 5-star rating, and I think at the highest he was 2, and by the end of it, he graduated. He was number 3 in the country.
Wow.
So we got to see Penn State, Michigan, BC several times, Notre Dame, Virginia, UNC. So it was really it was stressful, but it was cool to get to go see all those places, like the inside of the big house in Michigan.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Their weight room.
Put your name on the jumbotron.
Yeah,
I'm sure they had all their
it was really
recruiting
cool
stuff going on.
So,
and Buck, you've been a diehard Notre Dame fan, for your whole life. And now you mix in, one of your buddies, one of your closest buddies' sons on the team. What is that experience like for you as a lifelong Notre Dame fan?
I mean, it's a great feeling. Just seeing, knowing Joe since he was little, and our families being close, Joe and I being close. I got to see him grow up and be the person that he is, and he just carries himself so well. He's so, I use humble. I used humble earlier, but so humble, down to earth, hardworking. So he's earned everything that he's got, and to see him out there is crazy. I mean, if I didn't have the little kids at home, I would have been out there for the national championship. But I gotta save my weapons for when he's gonna make it again. So, but it was to see him on a team that I've always enjoyed to watch and followed was special. And to see someone that I'm as close with Joe, to see, how happy he was for, his boy was something else too.
He'd be checking in on the games and whatnot, in the season, and it was awesome checking in on little brother. And every now and then, Mario would he'd make the big plays, and I'd say, Joe Vinci tuning in from South Bend, Indiana.
Mario still laughs about that one.
Whether or not he was or not, it's just, how cool is that? We got a kid who's preparing for, Penn State tomorrow, and he's watching Westwood Bellingham.
Yeah.
But, it is true. So, like, I've gotten to know Dan Rice, cousins of Dave Rice. Dave Rice, Hall of Famer, Westwood baseball and hockey from the 70s. Dan grew up in Westwood. He went to Nobles. He was a terrific baseball player himself, played at Brown. His son is Ben Rice, who plays for the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
In kind of similar situation where he's playing for the Yankees. He had 3 home runs versus the Red Sox this year. And remarkable, game as a rookie.
Yeah.
I think he was from, he went to Dartmouth.
Oh,
he did. Yeah, he's a Dartmouth baseball
yeah?
player. Yeah, so went to, and he was a hockey player too.
Okay.
So he was very talented, big guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling Dan, I go, what's really remarkable is, you don't have to be a Notre Dame fan. You don't have to be a Yankees fan, but you're so drawn to this kid, like what they're doing at that level and from where they come from, is such an amazing story that anyone from this area, certainly will appreciate, and it's amazing because it took a lot of hard work.
Yeah,
definitely. You get a kid around here that plays there. It's not because they were, a blue chip genetic freak. That rarely happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's just always kids that, put in so much time and, effort and, and execution.
Right.
So.
And the town itself was very supportive, to your point,
Yeah.
Morgan, from the Westwood Living magazine and Tom
Yeah.
Layden, the article that he did. And then, I'd show up somewhere and they'd be like, oh, is your son Joe? And, it's amazing. And then I get in text that someone's at a bar in Norwood and they're sitting next to a guy who's talking about Joseph. And they
They could hear him talking. Yeah.
So it was really cool to support. And he definitely felt that. I can tell you that for sure. He got a kick out of that. So.
Yeah. Oh, it was awesome, and I can't wait for what next year brings as well. Once you get a taste of it, you get hungry, and I feel like teams always come back hungry, and they win the next year. So bring it back to the tournament. Want to close out on the tournament itself. What would make for a successful tournament this year? What's the goal? Is there a goal for foursomes, for fundraising? What are some of the goals that you have in store this year, Buck?
So, we just kind of want to keep it, as is year by year. We cap the number of people that play because we don't want people to come and have to play a 7-hour round of golf.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
We've moved along the first few years. It's really for the people to get to see each other and give back to the Westwood Athletics, where the fundraiser is for. I guess, a few other things that would be important is we want to reach to a younger age generation. Yeah. Now, I know you've come on this year, and Brett Hednick, who I just met through you, coming on to the committee. We've had, what do you say, 1980, 1975 to 2000 covered.
Covered pretty
maybe
well.
even to your class covered,
Yeah.
Fabs and all those guys play.
Yep.
But we want people to play past 2005. We want to get people involved that have been involved in Westwood athletics, or not even just them, but parents in the town that have kids that are at the school right now.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be someone that was born and raised in Westwood, but people that are living here now that want to be involved. We'd love to have them involved as well.
Yeah. So, a question for you guys that I have that we've asked a lot of our podcast guests, especially athletes, is your playing career. You develop a lot of different skill sets that we've confirmed with athletes that they've taken them and used them in their professional life. You guys have won important games. You guys played probably one of the most important team sports out there in football. How much of your high school sports experience and the lessons you've learned and just, leadership qualities, things like that, have you taken and used in your professional life today?
I would say quite a lot, especially like you mentioned. I think football is the ultimate team sport.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm biased, but
Yeah.
I truly believe that. But I think, the adversity that you go through, I think in any sport, you learn a lot about yourself and the teamwork and working towards a common goal, that all that translates to real life.
Yeah.
And, just recently I saw a Twitter post with Coach Patino with the St. John's team at halftime, and he's telling them basically, suck it up. You're down. That's life.
Yeah.
It's adversity. You gotta learn to overcome it. So for me, it's been huge. And then when I went into college, the biggest thing from that, in addition to what I've already said, is time management.
Yeah.
Because your whole life is structured because you got lift, practice, classes. So that, to me, that's something that still serves me well today.
Yeah.
Every day I use that.
Especially college. You go to college and you have all these different things that, are appealing, but you still got to get homework done.
Right.
You got to figure out, when am I going to get it done? And it's got to be quality too.
Exactly.
Quality time as
Yep.
well. And Buck, same thing,
Yeah, similar to what Joe said. You've anybody that plays, within a team, especially at like the high school level, and Joe did it at the collegiate level, you form a bond with your teammates, friendships, bonds, trust, whatever. And that goes a long way as you get older. You use those friendships and those bonds to stay in touch with some people, whether it's like through the business world. And, if you know these people and they know that the person you are and they have that, utmost respect for you, they're going to do things for you that you would do for them, when it comes down to the business aspect or just life in general.
Yeah. Yeah, and Buck, I can't wait for when your kids are at Westwood High School and Joe will come see them play. And
I'll be in Florida by then.
But really, really cool, having you guys back, who really had some amazing careers at Westwood, and then to see, your kids have it, and Buck, when your kids are at the high school as well. And amazing what you've been doing with the Athletic Alumni Association. I'm so proud to be a part of something that is providing, so much for these kids. We're trying to, on the Westwood Media Center side, we're trying to give them the best experience possible when it comes to games, when it comes to coverage, and then to add this to it as well when it comes to resources. These kids are getting top-notch, backing. So,
well, we also, I know Joe will feel the same way. Hats off to you, not only for coming on the committee, but what you're doing within the town that someone has really never done. You got your Instagram page where people can watch. I would have never known that the hoops beat know it at the buzzer, what I mean? But you shared that. Yeah. And then, if I share something like that, other people from Westwood that I might be friends with that you don't know will see that as well. So just to have that coverage and to have God, the internet can be good for things. It can be awful for things, but it can be good for things like that, So what you've done promoting and giving, Westwood Sports that name, and giving these kids, the interviews after the game that you can see on Instagram and their friends can see is a great thing. So keep doing what you do.
Oh, hey, what I've learned is you never lose the Wolverine in you. So even people that are long gone from Westwood High School and live, thousands of miles away, they still have some kind of level interest in what's going on in Westwood, So we try to bring that to them and the families, and all have this mutual connection. So, but guys, this is a blast. I feel like we could have talked for 3 days about, memories and stories and athletes and all that. But appreciate you guys coming on to talk about this amazing organization. I don't think we mentioned the date. So when is the date for the golf tournament?
The date is the Friday of April vacation.
25th, I believe.
25th.
Yeah, the 25th, Friday of April vacation. It just, this year it fell on school vacation because the vacation week is late this year, But we've been consistently keeping the last Friday in April as our date. With Brook Meadows been good to us. They've locked that date in for us. And like we said before, the thing after at Beacons, you don't have to play in the golf tournament. Yeah. If you have stuff going on with your kids or you have things going on with work and you can't make it that day, you can still come to Beacons after. Yeah. Everybody is welcome. So we'd like to see as many faces as we can.
Absolutely. 12,500 raised last year. Folks, let's make this the biggest tournament we can possibly make it for this year, and then keep adding it for many, many years to come. Reach out to any of us questions wise, but we'd love to be able to provide a bigger check next year for the athletes in Westwood Athletics, and really make a difference, in their experience, and give them the best resources possible. But guys, thank you so much for coming on. This is an absolute blast, and looking forward to the golf tournament on the 25th.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. You were watching the Wolverine Report. Thank you, folks, for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you all on the next one.